Welcome to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael Neese, president of Our Future is Kind, and your companion in conversations about kindness, leadership, connection, and courage. Each week, I sit down with thoughtful leaders, creators, and bridge builders to explore what a healthier, more humane future could look like, and the choices it takes to build it. These are honest conversations about purpose, culture, curiosity, and what it really means to show up for one another at work, in our communities, and in everyday life. Along the way, we'll unearth practical ideas, small but meaningful acts, and questions worth sitting with, because building what's next is a choice. So let's dive in. Amanda Fornal is a business consultant, startup advisor, executive coach, founder, and entrepreneur. And additionally, she's an explorer, photographer, diver, and documentary filmmaker. She's traveled to more than 100 countries and territories, reaching each continent with the goal of expanding her knowledge of the world around us and sharing it through her photos, films, and brilliance. So welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
I think it's amazing that we were able to get you on to one continent for long enough to have this conversation. So excited about that. Let's go ahead and start off in the right way. I introduced you, but I want you to tell our listeners and viewers what makes you you.
What makes me me? Well, obviously the color orange makes me me. It's a happy color. I feel that I surround myself with it because it brings me joy. And I think that's one thing that we all should do is surround ourselves with things that bring us joy. So orange makes me me. But also, I think my drive for exploration, my curiosity, my thoroughness, hopefully my thoughtfulness as well. I think those are the things that I like to embody: truth and being a trustworthy person in business, as well as in exploration and cultural research.
I love that. You threw in trustworthy, and that to me is like that's the core of what I look for in anybody I want to hang out with, right? I mean, somebody who I know is good at heart. How did you decide that that was going to be a piece of what you wanted to tell us?
You know, I was just off the cuff. I was like, what words do I identify with? And I do think it's important. And it's not only important in our personal relationships, but it's incredibly important in our business relationships. And I've been in business consulting for over 25 years, and I've worked with many teams all over the world. And when you interact with people, you know the people you want to continue to work with because those are the people that you can trust. That's who you want to bring back. Those are clients you want to continue with. And it's really important. And of course, in our personal relationships as well, who do we feel that are loyal, that are kind, that are trustworthy, people that we want to spend our free time with when we're not at work, with people we trust.
You are speaking my language. I love it. I know that you have a focus on business and adventure and all of these amazing things. So you must come across all kinds of people, whether you're trying to give them some sort of wisdom and strategies, or you're trying to learn about them and illuminate their lives for the rest of the world. So tell us about some of the interesting people that you come across.
Yeah. When it comes to business consulting, I've had amazing, really large clients over the years, and you always learn something from them, and you can bring that across to your new clients. And now that I've been working with startups as well, I think I found, that I'm addicted to innovation, right? That's one thing that I work with on a daily basis, and it just makes me happy. And I love learning from people that are innovating, but specifically innovating with purpose. Right. So I'm driven to work with purpose-driven founders who not only want to innovate and start companies, but change the world for the better. At a minimum, not make the world worse. Right. So you have these different types. And I think of one of the founders I work with, not only is she helping work to solve some issues with homelessness, but she's also doing that with sustainable materials, right? So we have all these great things coming together, and those are the types of founders I'm definitely driven towards. But when it comes to research outside of my business world, I really love that people trust me with their stories. And I think that is such a powerful thing. And one of the projects that I did a decade ago was called Love Is. And I interviewed over 600 people from around the world. And my idea was I wanted to understand the cultural nuances of love. And I came from it really scientific. It's like, yes, we are born here, and then what happens as we grow. So I interviewed people from ages 3 to 95, over 75 different cultures. And what I really learned is, it was more about what it means to be human, asking these questions. But people would sit with me, and I did these face to face, which is really very different type of project than the project I'm doing now, which I'll tell you about. But when I sat with people face to face from all over the world and asked them, how do you define love? Which love do you value the most and why? People would tell me stories that they'd never told anyone before. And this was on camera, and they really opened up. And that trust and that kindness to tell me their stories, that was powerful. Literally the most powerful thing I've ever done in my life. And it is something that I bring to everything I do. When I think about all the things that I've learned from these people, it helps me advise better. It helps me coach better. It helps me innovate better, because I truly believe that diversity of thought is how we push forward innovation in the most effective ways.
I love the fact that you talk about, you know, the people that you met in this documentary film that you were making, Love Is, as being storytellers. I always believe that we learn through stories, and it gets embedded in our psyche so much more deeply than if it's just a string of bullet points. Love is when people hold your hands, and love is this and love is that. I mean, if it's just a bullet point, that's not nearly as exciting as the story. Do any of the stories stick with you? Like, are there any that you just... Man, when I think back on this one story, anything
well,
else?
I love bullet points, just so we're clear.
Okay.
But yes, when we come to stories, I feel that there were certain people that you are just drawn to hear what they have to say. And sometimes it's because they're different than you, and they teach you something more than you expected. And so you can have all these stories about positivity. And when I came into this, I honestly started the project because I wanted to bring something positive to the art world. And I said, I want to do something positive. And what can I do that brings something positive, but every culture can talk about? And that was love. But what I learned is not every love story is positive. And we really need to understand those to help us learn about different things in our lives. And I was talking to a man who had been homeless, and he talks about how it felt to be homeless and how it felt to have people look through you and not feel like you're worth anything. And like, I almost, you know, it's been a decade since I've heard that story, but it still kind of chokes me up, because that you are worth something. And it always... that story stays with me because, you know, I try to make an effort to make sure people feel seen. And that's really important to me, because people might not even do it on purpose if they look past someone in a different way. But he said it was just important to feel seen as a person. And to me, that was very powerful. And I take that lesson and I think about it a lot in my life.
And so you do business consulting, and you bring that sort of state of mind to your discussions with, I'm assuming, business leaders and folks who are in these startups. So tell me about that a little bit.
Well, as a business consultant, if you're doing it for over 2 decades, over 25 years now, you get to do a lot of things. And so I've done everything from just starting off as a business analyst to large-scale program management, transformation, a lot of change management. And obviously, I work in technology, so large-scale implementations, process reengineering. And change management is about seeing people and hearing them and understanding them. So it's not just in our personal lives where we want to make sure that strangers are feeling seen, or our loved ones or our dogs are feeling seen. But when you are doing large scale change management, whether it's internal and we need to get our teams on board, or our customers, when we do something large that's a change for them, listen, right? It's about listening to what people need, what they want, what they're concerned about. There's lots of levers in change management where we can take time and understand our audience. And it's really important. It sounds simple, but listen, right?
Well, listening always seems obvious, and it's something that's so easy to just, be in a mode where I have to tell you a lot of things, so take some notes, and then you forget about the listening part, right? Have you ever had those circumstances where you feel in a rush and it doesn't quite go the way that you wanted, and maybe you have to come back? Has that ever been a circumstance for you?
I'd say for me, one of my core competencies is listening because I enjoy interviewing people. So I've interviewed people, everything from business, process reengineering, to large scale change management, to literal interviewing 600 people on love. And now on my kindness project, over 80 people from around the world as well. So listening is something that I do a lot and I enjoy it.
Well, that's great. So I guess probably the more tangled piece of your work might be then when you are consulting with a group of people and they are not hearing each other. Tell us about those moments.
Yeah, there are definitely moments where even if it's not a team issue, you see one person that comes across as they're not listening, and usually they're not, right? So it'll be like, here's the agenda, we'll talk about this, and they'll be like, okay, and then they move to the next subject because they only have on their mind what they want to get across.
Sure.
And I think this is a really important thing that we work with to coach people out of, right? So if you are just coming into a conversation and not thinking about what you can get from the information that others are talking about, that can be problematic, right? Take a moment, listen to what they have to say, and maybe you don't even need to respond. Maybe just digest that data. Or a tool that's really useful is say, this is what I'm hearing. And they might be like, no, that's absolutely not what I said, right? And you're like, I'm really glad I asked. And, that's something I like to do a lot is repeat back what people say just to validate. It's not just if I'm coaching someone, it's literally if I'm in a meeting and that sounds curious. Did they mean that? Right. And they might have, or they might not have. And it's a very useful tool just to validate you guys are having the same conversation.
To me, good communications always feel like kindness in action, because it is, if kindness is any one thing, I would say that it is curious. It's that attempt to connect with someone else. Tell me about this new project that you're working on.
So, investing in kindness. Like many projects, sometimes it comes out of an upsetting moment to you, right? And you're like, I can do something because of this. And I was on a panel at South by Southwest in the German House in Austin, Texas in March. And it was about women in innovation. And I was asked a question. They said, what gets you up in the morning? I was like, what gets me up in the morning? To do good, right? I want to make the world a better place. I want to improve, if I can, a little bit every day. And I thought about a talk that happened a few days earlier. And it was a venture capitalist. And he said he preferred investing in sociopathic founders versus kind founders. And I was like, wow. Thank you. Right. This did not feel good. When your body just reacts. And I was like, that's not great.
Yeah.
And I'm kind and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to invest in kindness, that's on you. Humanity is all we have. And people seem to like this answer. And I was like, phew, I'm not the only one. And that made me feel nice, of course. And a couple of days later, I was like, you know what? I like that saying I used, investing in kindness. You know what? That's going to be my next project. And I feel like it's a really nice sister piece to Love Is, right? Love Is was very non-business focused. And I interviewed people, all walks of life, all ages. And now let's talk about how kindness is going to hit our bottom line. And when I think about it, I was like, here's my hypothesis. If we're kind, we feel good. Others feel good. The earth feels good. And it is good for our bank account. And then I started doing the academic research. And yes, all the academic research agrees with me. But it comes down to what you said earlier. stories are what stick. So let's interview venture capitalists, angel investors, childhood educators, founders. What does it mean to invest in kindness? What are some stories you can share that has seen it work well? Or if people are not kind, and how businesses might fail because of that. And so it's been an exciting journey since March. And I've interviewed, I think, around 30 countries at this point.
Okay.
And I do them over Zoom, so I don't have to travel. So that's nice. And about 80 something people.
Wow. Wow. And are there themes that you can talk about at this point without spoiling the final product?
Yeah, so I do have a blog, so you can actually see all the themes. I write a summary at 25 and 50, and then they'll be at 75 and 100. And at 100, I'll decide either to continue or to stop or to do another project like a book or a framework on how we can invest more effectively that is aligned with our ethics. But the themes that come out that are curious to me is people are very adamant that kindness and niceness aren't the same thing. And I was like, oh, okay. I've never really thought about that. And the idea is niceties are, oh, you look nice today.
Right.
Or just saying a platitude versus being actively truthful with an empathetic lens. And I see this with myself when I give feedback to founders when we go and do pitch reviews. So people pitch. And of course, I'm not going to tell you you did a great job if you did not, but I'm going to compliment you on what you did well, if you did something well, and then tell you how to improve that pitch and give you actionable feedback. And that means my heart is in the right place where I want you to improve. I'm looking out for you.
Right.
Versus just saying that sucked. Right. That is not useful. It might be truthful, but it's not useful. Right. So you have this mix of truthfulness with kindness, empathy, usefulness. And yes, truth is probably the kindest thing you can do. However, let's be truthful in the most empathetic way possible.
I love Brené Brown's definition of how clear is kind.
Yeah.
I love that. And it seems to echo very similarly the way that you're talking about it. And I absolutely agree with you that niceness is not the same thing as kindness. It is platitudes. It's lip service. It's let's not talk about that really hard thing and let's just pretend that everything's fine. That's nice. Whereas kindness is that truth telling. So how did you come to that? I mean, did you already sort of have a sense that there's a truth element to kindness, or is this something that you've just discovered through all of these interviews?
For me, that has always been, right? I love telling the truth. My mom used to joke that Amanda's truthful to a fault, right? I am very truthful, and I always pretty much say how it is, right? It's just who I am. And so I'm happy that others believe the same thing. It's reassuring that I'm not the only person that thinks kindness is about telling the truth, and it is very powerful. Sometimes people don't like the truth. And I think that is where, when we talk about kindness, it's not always easy. You know, when you tell someone you care about a hard truth, they might not like you very much. And if you are really showing up for a friend who needs to hear something, they might not want to be your friend anymore. And so life is about a series of decisions that we need to make where we feel the most comfortable. And for me, for example, I would always err on the side of telling you a hard truth, risking that you may not want to talk to me anymore because I felt that I did the right thing. And sometimes it's really hard, but those are the decisions we get to make in life.
Thank goodness we do, and thank goodness you're here to tell us how we can do it better. So I'm going to ask you for a little bit of advice for everybody who's tuned into this conversation. How can they have those conversations? How can they stay in a moment where they know they have to say something that is not going to be received well? And then how can they stay with the person during the fallout of that?
Yeah, I've seen, I can give examples from both a business perspective as well as personal perspective. And I remember I was at a client and one of the client workers was a friend. And for a year, we would go to lunch every day and we were good friends. And I had to run a specific project where he wasn't showing up appropriately. Mm-hmm. And I had that conversation where you have to show up. He was not happy. He did not want to have lunch with me anymore. And there was definitely this challenge. And I did come as kind as I could saying, you need to show up. For me, as a consultant, I always have to make people accountable who are not accountable to me. So it's a very tough job where I need to get people to be motivated and to do work, even though I can't fire them. Right. And so it's always this really delicate situation. And I remember this because we were very good friends. And then he was, I kind of hate you a little bit. Right. And at the end, when I left, he wrote me this card. And I'll always remember this. I mean, this was almost 15, 20 years ago. He said, thank you for making me care about work again. I was like, I was like, wow. So you hated me a little bit, but I changed your life for the better, right? So that feels good, even though it was hard for me because I didn't have my lunch friend for a few months.
Right.
But so that was a good and hard moment. And then from a friend perspective, sometimes your friends make poor life choices that you want to help them with. And you're like, how do I tell them this hard? For me, I often write things down, and I think is really helpful to stop, think, write, walk away, come back, maybe even 24 hours, reread, keep rewriting that until you are comfortable with that story. And then you can choose to verbally tell that story or even send them something in writing. And I remember telling a friend something that was very hard, and I started, understand that you might not want to be friends with me anymore, but I care about you too much to let you continue this action in life, and told them what I thought based on what they were doing. And that in particular did work out well. And she's like, wow, you are such a good friend. Right. And it doesn't always end that way. Right. But you need to be able to know that you might lose that relationship when you try to help someone, and you have to be okay with that.
I love the fact that you're talking about kindness as a value system. It really, truly is something that if you're living your value system, you have to let go of the end results. And you were absolutely highlighting that.
Yeah, I live life, I think, as a optimistic realist.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So you prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And in business and in life, that is quite a useful way to live because you really understand the risk. And when I take on very large scale projects for large companies, a lot of my job is also understanding what risks we are having and how to mitigate them. What if this happens? What do we do? Of course, we hope it doesn't happen. So what can we do to avoid it from happening? And I think living that way also allows you to try to avoid the bad things from happening as well, because you're saying, okay, this is a potential risk. What can I do to avoid it? If it does happen, what do I do? Right. And that is something we have to do if we want to come out at the other end decently happy, because things definitely could go sideways. And you have to say, this might happen. Am I okay with it? And if I'm not, how can I change the action for this not to happen?
It's the radical acceptance of the fact that a lot of things can happen. People could take a swing at you, and you have to know that that is a possible outcome. And then it sounds like you are bringing something to the show that I've not heard articulated before. So I really want to dig in a little bit. It's being prepared for multiple possible outcomes. Can you talk a little bit more about why that's so important?
Yeah, I think about it as a life process flow, right? When I started out my career, I did a lot of process reengineering. And you ask, what is your as-is process? and you dig deep, right? You could go many levels deep and really understanding the if then that's. And as simple as a call center, you're going to say, these are all the different types of things that could happen. And how do we respond to those customers and why? And then we review all of those and say, how can we improve? How can we make it better? How can we make it better for our agents? How can we make it better for our customers? And that is kind of how I live life, right? What could happen if I do this thing? And I think it means for me, failure doesn't really exist because there's always another option. And you're like, well, if I suck at that, I can try something else. And I'm a big fan of continual learning. And I think that's one of the splits in our process flow as humans. At any point in our life, at any age, we can start something new. And that's awesome. And at any point in our life, if we fail at something, we can learn something from it and do something else. And so every failure is a little bit of a win because you're like, okay, I don't want to do that again. And if you kind of go through life being okay with not being the best at everything and maybe being the best at something and trying something new, then your life is going to be more comfortable. And why not be comfortable?
Right. Yeah. No, I love the fact that you have all of your bases covered. Yeah. So I'm curious also about moving away a little bit from the focus on strategy. I'm really curious about your sense of adventure. Where did that come from, and what kind of adventures do you look forward to?
You know, I grew up very sheltered, a simple life. You know, I grew up in a small town and I'd never been on a plane. I had never left the country. I didn't even have cable TV or credit cards. And so my adventures were playing in the woods. You know, my brother and I would go out and explore, and that was our normal. We went on vacation 1 week a year, tent camping, and that was our adventure. In New England, we're tent camping first week of August, and I wanted to see everything because I had seen very little. And soon as I was an adult, I was like, what can I see? Very curious always, but this was the opportunity in college to study abroad. And the first time I studied abroad, I mean, wow, it was just, everything was so magical, right? So the first time you're in a new country, and I just loved it. And so it just kept building and building. And I didn't set out to go to over 100 countries. It just kind of happens when you have that drive to learn, that curiosity. And then it became fun, be like, ooh, I want to try to go to new countries. And so when I plan projects, I can plan around that and be like, well, I've never gone here. Why not add that into my research? Or I have gone there, but I didn't see this thing. I remember I decided on a project, and it was based on another project, as you never know where you might get inspiration. I started a poverty alleviation nonprofit a few decades ago with a friend. And it was amazing. I learned so much, and she was so brilliant at creating different ways for us to help other nonprofits. And one was a group of kids in India at a school where we're taking kids out of child labor, and we provided their midday meal, which allowed them to go to school instead of work. And we decided to go and visit these kids. I had never been to India, and it was her and her partner and myself, so the three of us. First, I got into India, again, magical. It's like, everything's new. This is so amazing. And when we worked with the kids and shot a little mini documentary, they were just so amazing. And we did an art contest with them. I just loved every bit of that. And when my friends left, I said, well, I'm in India. Let's travel. So this is way back in 2004. And I had never traveled in India, obviously not alone. And so I traveled for about a month around the country.
Wow.
And I saw many different things, many different cultures within the country. And one was really interesting. It was in the north, where I was given an opportunity to meet a woman who was showing off an antique sari for a group of tourists that were interested in learning about the different materials. And I was like, can I take your picture? And she's like, yes. We didn't have a language in common, but we had a translator. And then I asked if I could visit her village, and she said yes. So a driver brought me to her village, and the women were just so kind. They just invited me in. I looked different. I didn't speak the same language. They would invite me into their homes. They gave me tea and let me photograph them, and I did these really nice portraits. It was just such a wonderful day. And I noticed they had tattoos, and it wasn't henna, it was actual tattoos. And, 2004 wasn't as easy just to Google and find out information. And I was inspired by these women. And I said, you know what? I'm going to study cultural markings. And when I started studying cultural markings, I was like, where do I begin? And the South Pacific. It's where our tattoos here originated from, on sailors. And so I studied the history of tattooing in the South Pacific. Again, first time doing this, I went to alone with very heavy cameras. I traveled to 9 countries, about 20 islands. I think I took 50 flights. And I spent about 3 or 4 months around the South Pacific interviewing people about tattooing. And it was an incredible life experience because you have moments of being scared, acting like an idiot, all the things that you do when you first try something. But I loved Vanuatu, and I had a really good time there. And what was interesting is I was really focused on what I was researching. And then when I came home, people were like, oh, did you go to Tana and see the volcano? I was like, what volcano? And apparently there's this amazing famous volcano that's live and active, and you can see lava, and it's incredible. And so now I'm disappointed in myself. I was like, Amanda, you're in this cool place far, far away, and you didn't see probably one of the coolest things in the country. So when I was scheduling my Love Is locations, Vanuatu is happening. So I made sure I put Vanuatu on my interview list. And I did my interviews, but I also took a moment for myself, and I went and saw that volcano. And it was incredible. Worth the 10-year wait. Absolutely one of the most amazing things I'd ever done is hiking up. One, you fly over it, and then you hike up, and then you're there at night. I mean, fantastic. So all these things just drive me to learn more. And even if I can't see it for 10 years, I will keep working until I can see the thing, because, good things sometimes take time.
And it sounds magical enough that it was worth it.
Oh, so worth it. I mean, absolutely. There's a few things in life where you're like, those oh damn moments, right?
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
Well, I always like to remind people that, I love outer space, and I love the idea of doing space exploration. I always try to remind people we're on a planet right now. How much of this one have you seen? Where have you been lately? Do you go on walks? Do you get outside? I mean, you said you and your brother used to go out into the woods, and that was one of your big adventures. I mean, that sounds like a magical childhood.
I think it's always important when talking about exploration to note that it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to go to Antarctica to be an explorer. You just need to be curious. And you can do that outside your house, whether you live in the woods or whether you live in a city. And one example would be during COVID, I was in Germany and we couldn't do anything. So I was like, what can I explore? What can I learn? There were cemeteries and graveyards and local churches all around me. Within a 20-minute drive, I visited over 70 graveyards.
Wow.
And photographed them and looked at the architecture in these churches. So this was free. It was by my home, and all you needed was your eyes. And if you want a camera, I happen to take pictures of them. And I think that is what real exploration is the curiosity to learn, whether it's interviewing your grandmother or looking outside. Because honestly, you could look inside. You never know what you're going to find in your house, right? And that's a fun thing as well. I've met people around my local community that had so much great data that nobody knows they have, that I can help them bring to light and help them tell their stories. And that, to me, is a part of exploration. And really an important part.
Well, I know that you've inspired people who are tuned in right now to think about adventure in a new way, and hopefully they're making a list, at least a mental one, about where are they going to go next.
Yeah. What stories do you want to tell? And that's actually one of the projects I'm working on now, was inspired by Love Is and making it more accessible. Because as I said before, it's very hard to interview people face to face. It's very difficult to travel everywhere to be able to tell these stories. And it was even hard for me once I had those stories to open them up to the public, because I have all this data, but no time to process it. So what could I build? What could I do that would allow people to record their stories and make them easily accessible? So I did a hackathon actually to build something, and then I liked it. So I'm building a project called Elefari, which is a storytelling platform that prompts you to tell these types of stories, whether it's a Love Is story, a childhood memory, a story about your grandparents. All of those things are important to somebody, and we might as well save them. And so Elefari allows people to either save their own stories or save cultural stories, historic projects. And this is something that hopefully will be launched in 2026.
It's fantastic. It's very exciting. Lovely. I want to take you now on to the Our Future is Kind hit parade of questions. Love doing these thought experiments. And if you're game, let's give it a shot.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, Amanda, you and I are going to step into a time machine. We're going to go 100 years into the future. And as I'm dialing up the controls, I'm telling you, Amanda, we did all the right things. We did everything is the best way that we knew how to do it. And things are turning out great. And we step out of the time machine and I let you look around. What are you looking for to confirm that I told you the truth, that things really were done the best way?
Well, of course, all of our restaurants are plant-based.
Okay.
I mean, that's got to be number one.
Love it.
That's definitely a future that we want to look forward to. Also, I believe, and I said this earlier, that diversity of thought is how we push forward these great innovations and how we solve the big problems. And I believe that when we take a moment, again, it comes down to listening to each other and helping fill in the gaps of what we don't know to work together to solve these big problems. And so I see that we are working towards solving these problems. When we go from a scientific perspective, we have a lot of diseases that people come together to try to solve. And I think that going into these hospitals or going into these science incubators and seeing that these problems are either solved or we're really pushing forward innovation on these. I think those are real amazing indicators that I do see that we are pushing forward. And I love to see those innovations and people working on things that matter.
Yeah, the diversity of thought that pushes forward the frontiers of science and technology. It sounds like a great future, and I would love to go have an Impossible Burger there with you. Sounds great. And so now here's the tricky part of the question. I said we did all the right things to get there. What are all those right things?
The beautiful thing about the future is it's the period of time that we have the most control over. And another beautiful thing about it is we all have the power to create that future. And it doesn't necessarily take crazy actions. It just takes actions in the right direction. And it's important for everyone to know that they matter and every action they take matters, as small as it is. Every action in the right direction is in the right direction, right? No matter how small. So when we think about how we get this future, it's about thinking about the actions we take. Think about who we want to be and how our actions reflect that. Often I hear people say, oh, I wish I could do that, or I wish I was that. You can be that. Even if it's not today, take a step that will allow you to be that person tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You know, there's an exercise that I talk about sometimes in my coaching, and it's called an orange safety bubble. And it can be with change, or it could be with fear. And it's this idea of we have this place where we are comfortable. And if you never step out of it, that bubble will never expand. So I'm not saying you have to go 100 feet outside your comfortable bubble. Take one step out, make a change today, continue that change, and then your bubble gets bigger. And now you can take one more step. So, you know, when it comes to healthy eating, for example, people are always saying, oh, I wish I could eat healthier. I wish I ate more vegetables, whatever that is. Okay. Maybe you can't have 7 vegetables today, but maybe you could start with a half a vegetable. Whatever you can do to get that to be your norm.
Right.
And now it's your norm. Next week, you can do something else. So what I encourage people to do is make incremental changes in their life to be what they want to be what the future you wants. And continue that momentum forward. And again, every single little thing matters. And that is critical to remember.
I hope that everybody's taking really good notes here, because that's fantastic advice. The idea of it being incremental and start with things that you can do easily and move your way up. But let me ask you this, Amanda. There are days when it is not easy to be kind. It is not easy to do the right things and head in the right direction. What do you do on those days when it's not easy and you feel challenged?
There are multiple challenges in life. Some are external and some are internal, right? And if you come up against an external challenge where someone is just ridiculous, right? You're like, what is happening right now? I encourage you to pause. What is happening? Why is this person making me sad, angry, frustrated, confused? And is it on me? Am I remembering something that happened to me in the past that's bringing this frustration up? Or are they having a bad day? Are they acting out of character? Why are they acting the way they are? Don't get me wrong. Some people are terrible, right? It's not that I'm saying that every person has good intention, but when you take that moment to pause, you can act more effectively, whether it's to act more you and how you want to be, or to diffuse the situation if the person is having a bad day or they are terrible. Either way, right? But we don't always act in character. People have bad days. And I remember from one of my interviews, someone telling me, no, someone in their family had passed and they were in an airport and they were rude to the person at the airport. And they just felt so bad about it. And it's just like, I wasn't myself. So what do we do when we're not ourselves because we're having a really bad day? First, I'd say is apologize. If you have the opportunity, apology is powerful. I wasn't myself. I don't even know why I said that. Or I said that because I was having a tough day. Give yourself grace is the third thing, right? Again, we are not perfect. It would be weird if any of us were perfect. I mean, cool, but we're not. So say, you know, I made a mistake. I learned from it. I'll try not to do it again. And that also means give others grace, because we know what it's like not to be our best selves. So pause, apologize, give grace, and hopefully that'll help.
It's a great formula. Wonderful. So now think about what gets you inspired, because one of the questions that I frequently get is, how do you stay inspired? What are the things that can get me out of bed in the morning? What are the things that can teach me something new or get me excited about life? So my guess is that you're going to say that it's books, it's nature, but what is it? What are the things that really dig in for you and make life inspiring?
You know, I'm just a curious person, and I genuinely love learning. And I find most things interesting. So you could be of any type of job. I'll be like, tell me about that, right? So it's about asking questions, learning about people, hearing their stories. And I believe everyone has something to offer. And if you take time to listen, to ask questions, you'll find it. And I'd say that to me is absolutely the most important thing. But outside of just talking to others, I do like books. I like audiobooks specifically. I have a book club for several years now, and I defined the rules in the book club as I do. And it's nonfiction, data-driven books. And I know it's a very particular taste, but it's what I enjoy. And luckily, the people in my book club also enjoy. And we do it in a way that also allows for socialization and learning from each other. And so we will read maybe only a chapter a week, and then we meet on Sunday and we talk about that chapter, but how it relates to our lives and also just what's going on in our lives, right? So again, it's that human connection paired with data. And for me, I can listen to all the books in the world, but I don't have an eidetic memory, so I don't memorize every book. But what helps you remember information is talking about it with others and seeing how it relates to them. And I love that. And of course, the idea of being able to learn from the past is interesting as well. So I'm also the founder of Women in Exploration, and I have many different projects with that. And one that is live now is called A Little Bit of History. And it's about 129 bios of female explorers from history.
Wow.
And when I was writing those and even rereading them, because again, there's a lot to remember,
Right.
they inspire me. I was like, wow, that's cool. They're solving problems centuries, decades ago, and times that were much more challenging for women. And these women were wonderful. And it's just really interesting to hear their stories and share their stories as well.
Sounds fabulous. And I know that one of the questions that's going to come up, it is going to come up. Do you have any more space in your book club?
Of course.
Okay.
Come join us. We read amazing. Well, listen, again, another rule, it has to be available via audio because I only do audiobooks. I'm very specific.
Okay. No, it sounds great. Sounds wonderful. So Amanda, I can't believe the time has just flown by. I want you to tell everybody, how can they get into your orbit? How do they learn about what you're working on, support you, learn from you? What are all the things you want to tell people?
So many things. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I have lots of websites, so you can find all of those depending on what you're interested in. As we mentioned, I advise companies, I advise startups, and just humans as well, and executive coaching. And you can contact me for those. But also, if you're just interested in exploration and working on pushing forward different stories, we have our Women in Exploration site. We also have the Love Is site, and we have Elefari, the program that we're building now. Right now, we have a B2C, but we're working on a B2B. So if your organization wants to work with us to tell different stories, we're here for it.
All right. Amanda Fornal, so glad that you could join us today on Our Future is Kind. Thank you for coming, and we're definitely going to have you back because I know you have more adventures to tell us about in the future.
Tons of adventures.
Awesome. This episode's Kindness Challenge. Someone feels seen through reflective listening. In your next conversation, pause and ask one curious follow-up question instead of jumping in. Say, "This is what I'm hearing," and summarize in one sentence. If they correct you, thank them. "I'm glad I checked. Tell me more." Do this once a day for a week with a coworker, a family member, even a stranger, and notice how the tone changes. Want to stay inspired so you can stay kind? Turn curiosity into a weekly learning and connection ritual. Pick a nonfiction, data-driven audiobook and listen to just one chapter per week, Amanda style. Talk about that chapter with one person. What's one thing you agree with and one thing you want to try? Add one history spark a week. Read a short bio from a women explorers resource and share the story with someone as a quick voice note. You've been listening to Our Future is Kind podcast, where building what's next is a choice. Make your next choice a good one and help build the future we want to live in.